All right, sounds good. Thank you, Vikas. Hello, Vikas. We are super excited to have you here at the Career Theory. Thank you so much for taking time on a busy day. I know how important a day, which is like a Monday, to start a podcast. Thank you so much for dialing in.
Thank you, Sai.
And
Thank you, Bharat, as well. I'm glad to be here and I'm happy to share whatever little I have to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vikas, for agreeing to join us on this wonderful journey. Especially our audience has been really excited about few episodes we have had in the past, and we wanted to bring more good content so that they can learn and strive for whatever they're looking forward to in their career. Especially you had an amazing career, and we wanted to make sure we get more out of your experience as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate those kind words. I'm happy to talk about my career journey, and then you guys can then talk about jump into whatever interests you guys.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
absolutely, absolutely.
sure.
absolutely.
So I actually grew up in Bombay, so I was part of a very middle class family, like nothing special. We had all the luxuries of life, but not like enough money to like splurge and stuff. We didn't have a car, so like on public transport and everything. And my father was in management. My sister went in down the management route, and I was like, maybe I should go down the management route as well. And
Mhm.
I actually started preparing for the IIMs, which is like a management exam in India. And the IIMs are apparently one of the more prestigious. They are comparable to the I, but for management. So I
Yes.
started preparing for them. In my first attempt, I got 94th percentile, which sounds really
Oh.
good, but it is terrible because it means you need to be in the 99.5th plus percentile to
Correct.
Wow.
actually get an admit in one of these IIMs. So
Wow.
94th percentile, as impressive as it sounds in America, is garbage because it means you get zero calls. Not a single IIM will call you at the 94th percentile.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
And
Yeah.
I was pretty depressed. Like I was like, imagine being depressed after being in the 94th percentile. If my son was here in this that position back then, I would be proud of him because he did
Yes.
really well. But in that situation, in the competitive mindset that you have in India, it was very heartbreaking because you put so much
Agreed.
effort and you didn't get it. And during that time, my friends were also like all my entire friend circle in my engineering. I was doing engineering in school,
Mm-hmm.
decided to do their masters, and they all pretty much, we were five friends. Four of them decided they're going to the US. I was the only one was staying back. So it
Mm-hmm.
happened that when they're leaving, I would go to the airport, drop them off, and then walk back. It got really sad. Suddenly, I was the only one left behind. I was like, maybe I should just do masters. And under peer pressure, literally under peer pressure, I decided to give the GRE and apply for my masters. And that year, I was like, I got my admits, and I was like, I'm going to school for a degree in computer science.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave the IIM the cat on a whim, and I
Mm-hmm.
did well. I actually got a few calls, and I had to say no to them ultimately, even though because that year I had decided like I had the option to choose between doing computer science and management, and I realized the only reason I was doing management was because that is what my parents and my sister was doing. That's what we should talk
Mm,
about all the time at home.
Yes.
mm.
So I think that was the first real decision that I made personally, instead of like being influenced like mostly as a kid, you are influenced in India by what everybody
Absolutely.
else is doing. Everybody's doing engineering, IIMs,
Yes.
IITs, or like being a
Yes.
doctor. And that is when I decided, like, that was my first, I want to say, adult decision in my life, that I know I have this amazing option at the IIMs, but I'm going for my master's. And I came to America. And that's how I started my pursuit of computer science. And I was like,
Mm.
amongst my like five friends,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all four of my friends are not doing computer science anymore. They all came for masters in computer science. I'm the only one who's now doing computer science today. So that's like a funny
Wow.
aside. So yeah, I actually fell in love with computer science. I got lucky. I got an admit from a nice school. I was interested in theory when I came here. I wanted to do a PhD actually at one
Mm-hmm.
point, and then I realized I'm not very good at theory. So I decided to go into like more applied computer science, which was like at that time I did a master's in data science,
Mm-hmm.
data systems and algorithms, and more like towards the data science part. So that's, and then the masters itself was a journey for me. It was a fun
Great.
journey. I grew up over here learning about options. Like I came to school like in engineering in India, you're told here are the 5 courses you're going to take, and this is what you're going to need to do to pass, and that is what you do. And I came over here, and the first day was, what would you like to do? And you have 50 courses to choose from. And I was like, what? I have to
Wow.
choose? I have no idea. I'm supposed to make this decision on my own. And I was
Yeah.
like, of course, like in India, you take 5 courses. Over here, they expect me to take three. I'm going to take five. So I
Yeah.
went ahead and took five, and I
Yeah.
got destroyed completely in the first semester. It was brutal.
Wow.
And then I figured, okay, let's do something. Like I figured, okay, uh, one course in India and one course in the US are not comparable. So maybe I should try something. I should be more realistic, listen to what others have to say, learn from their mistakes. And
Mhm.
that was another lesson for me, being more humble, I guess, instead of thinking that you can do anything. It was a good
Absolutely.
lesson in humility when you get a GPA of like 3.0 and everybody else is getting a 4. So anyway,
Yep.
so, so that was a master's experience, and then after that, I graduated at the peak of the crisis. So I had 5 job offers
Mhm.
when I was graduating, and 4 of them pulled out. I was one of the lucky people who actually had a job offer during the peak of this crisis. It was a company in Wisconsin,
Mm.
and it was a healthcare software company, and they were really nice. And I didn't want to really go there, but because it was Wisconsin Madison,
So, well. Yeah.
but those people are really nice. When I told them I want to push out my start date, they were like, sure, why not? I took my own time. I
Mm.
I did more work trying to get my uh, thesis longer so I can get more options in terms of the job
Mm.
market and stuff. But
Mhm.
the market had completely frozen over, and it was pretty rough for a lot of people. And
Mhm.
I realized at one point I at least have one offer. Let me just take it up, and that's how I ended up in Wisconsin. And
Wonderful.
after that, it was like a series of the job was the people are really nice, but the job was like VB6, and VB6 was a language that even Microsoft had stopped supporting at that point in time. So it was literally working on a dead language, and the job was like not very challenging per se. I got really bored. I was in a completely new town, and the winters were brutal. I was that was not where I wanted to be pretty much. And then I figured I'm getting out of there. By then, my girlfriend, now my current wife, was in New Jersey at
Mm.
Rutgers,
Mhm.
Mm.
and I figured let me get back to the East Coast. And then I got a job at a hedge fund in
Mm.
Stamford, Connecticut. We came here around that is around when we got married. The wife used to do a commute from Stamford, Connecticut to like New Jersey
Jesus.
to Rutgers, and that was brutal.
What?
So
Wow.
we didn't do that. We were like, okay, we tried for 6 months, didn't work. Maybe I should find a different job. I got lucky. I had another job offer at a startup. I did some machine learning over there. That was a lot of fun. That was another one of my defining experiences about working in a startup, because it showed
Mhm.
like things are very open ended, and very
Mm.
often
Mm.
what matters is not perfection, but sometimes speed is more important. And there are scenarios in which you should be comfortable taking on tech debt when the life of your business is on the line, stuff like that. So
Exactly. Yep.
it was a great experience. And then after the startup didn't wasn't going very well after a point, and I was like, all right, I'm out of here, and I joined an investment bank. I got really lucky over there. We worked on a very hard problem, and this is just like this is 2011. The crisis is just ramped down. It's become chill,
Mm-hmm.
and this my then manager made a amazing pitch. He was like, essentially, you are trying to prevent 2008 from happening all over again. Like
Oh.
that's a very very high level pitch, and I was like, that is impressive, and it was a very ambitious problem that they were trying to tackle, and they had no
Mhm.
idea how to tackle it, which was so it was a very researchy space. So I was like, I'm in. I want to figure this out. We went inside and we worked with this one quant smart dude. And the problem
Mhm.
was this: if you're a trader, right, you go
Mm-hmm.
to the market and you have these very complex instruments that only you can price. And
Mm-hmm.
these
Mhm.
instruments are not listed on the open market. So you are a trader. Bharat is a trader. Vikas is a trader. I trade with Bharat. Bharat trades with Sai, for example, and Sai
Mhm.
trades with me. But
Mm-hmm.
these trades are between each of us. So they're called over the counter trades. And they're
Mhm.
not publicly available anywhere. So nobody else knows what is happening in the market. Like in the stock market, everybody knows what the price of a trade is.
Correct.
Mhm.
So how do you price these instruments that are being traded over the counter?
Mm-hmm.
What people rely on are some metrics that are available globally. They basically do a reverse calculation based on the volatility of these options prices and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
who do you get this information from? The traders. You have to go to the traders to ask them, what is the volatility? What are these things? And they know that you're using this information to price the instrument. And
Right.
obviously, they're going to give you information that is going to make their position look better,
Mm.
right? So they have an incentive to not provide information correctly to you.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
the problem became, how can we, without any trader feedback, build a pricing mechanism that can price the books of these traders without involving them in any way? And it was a
Wow.
beautiful problem. And we solved it for this one trader, and he was like super pleased because he didn't have to stay after 4 o'clock to do all of that work. And then he was
Wow.
like, he pitched it to another desk, which is a collection of traders, and they loved it. And then
mm,
it
Mm-hmm.
became went from one desk to a full business. We did for the entire FX business, and then they loved it, and they were like, we should do this more. We then went to commodities, credit, equities. Basically, we then covered the entire investment bank. The
mm,
entire
Wow.
investment bank was using this infrastructure, and then it became so good to a point. I don't know if this is like pretty famous in the news about the London whale.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is a book that was being this was a book that was being literally maintained in spreadsheets, and
Mm-hmm.
that book was like that caused a massive crisis for JP Morgan. That entire portfolio was also then priced the work that my team did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a fantastic experience in taking solving a very specific problem and then
Mm-hmm.
scaling it
It
up
just
and up
it,
and up all the way to the entire, not just the
yeah,
investment bank, but to the entire organization. So
absolutely.
that was amazing. And
Now,
then,
mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was trying to understand, like, you have such a diverse background with your parents in the management. Now you are in the engineering. What does, when you are transitioning from a management to engineering, what, how does the journey looks like? Because most of the people, when they're growing up in their careers, they wanted to become like C-suite executives, which is part of the management.
yeah.
Having management probably experienced people at home, now you have transitioned towards engineering. What does that transition looks like for you?
That is a fantastic question. And I think this is fundamentally what defines a person, right? And
Hmm.
Mm,
at the end of the day, if all decisions were easy and there
mm,
was obviously one correct decision, everybody would take those decisions and everybody would do the same exact thing. If red shirts were better than green shirts, everybody would be wearing red shirts all the time, right?
yes.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, what you have to say is what you care about. And what
Hmm.
you care about, you have to take a stand ultimately and say, in my case, it was Vikas enjoys engineering more than Vikas is going to enjoy management. Vikas has done engineering and he had a good time and he had fun doing engineering. He wants to have more
Mm.
fun. Engineering is more fun. Let's do that. So I had to make that call that Vikas is for engineering.
Got it.
You do not have a crystal ball that will tell you if Vikas became a manager, what his career will be like. If Vikas was an engineer, what his career will be. Nobody
Absolutely.
can give you that answer, not even
Mm.
yourself.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
what matters is you putting control over your life and saying, this is what my decision is, I own it, and this is what I'm going to do. And that is fundamental. And this
Absolutely.
choice is where we get to essentially say the story of our lives, right?
Mm,
Like
mm,
when we
yes.
make a choice, we are saying, this is the story where Vikas is an engineer, or this is the story where Vikas is a manager. And
Yep.
Mm.
this is where you take over, you take charge. And you have to take charge because nobody else is going to take charge of your decisions. And people want to influence your decisions, people want things out of you, they
Mm.
will try to do things. Ultimately, it is you who's writing the story of your life, not someone
Wow.
else. So
Powerful,
Wow.
really powerful. And I think I'd resonate a lot with you, Vikas, especially a lot of us back in India, we were told or influenced from several of our proximity that this is the way of living. This is how you need to become an engineer, become a manager, become a doctor. And when you were telling that every time you used to go to airport to drop one of your friend who's going to US, is pretty much what I did for 3+ years. Everyone who's going to US, I also went drop them off, see them off to US. But it took me particularly to find my purpose, my whole passion for what I wanted to really do. It took me a little time to exactly understand that. And I
Yep.
can resonate what you are talking about, and it makes me really feel proud that you were able to defy everyone and make that decision for yourself, because you said we are the ones who are going to make our own story. No one
Yep.
else has any say or can direct our movie how we really wanted it to be. One thing I really wanted to touch upon, which was, you said at the times when you were writing cat and you got 94 percentile, which is extraordinary, trust me. But you also said, I went through a depression period.
Yep.
And how was that experience for you? And what was something that got you out of the depression? What was your motivation factor that you went through that journey and got out of it?
I think it is. I wish I can answer more generally, but I don't think I can. I'm
That's
going to answer what what helped me, I guess. I
mm-hmm,
tend to look forward. I don't look in the past, and that means when I say I was like not very happy, I was not very happy for maybe a week,
mm-hmm,
really, and then I'm thinking about what next. So at that point, it was very clear to me because, like I said, at that point it was also the same stage where my friends were leaving. It was pretty clear to me this is what my master's is what I'm going to do. So it was all right, time to prepare for the GREs, and
mm.
I basically went on to step two, and that was
Mm.
do the GREs. And ironically, preparing for the GRE somehow helped my CAT performance. I don't know how, but it was like, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, and a lot of aptitude learning. So that's what it was, maybe. Yeah.
I want to say I hope so, but I have no idea. I'm going to attribute it to luck pretty much. And more importantly, I want to say it is easy for folks to say I want to exercise a decision when they have options. It is much harder to say I want to do something when you have no option and still commit to doing that and do it at a price that is going to take that pound of flesh from you. Being
Absolutely.
able to do that is significantly harder, and I was lucky I
Mm.
did not have to pay that pound of flesh.
Mm,
I had options and I could choose from those options. When you don't have If I did not have any admit from the US, probably there's a very good chance I would have gone down the IIM route.
yeah.
So to be fair, as much as I would like to credit maturity to that decision, it was not maturity. It was just because I had the options, I had the luxury of choosing,
Mm,
and
Mm.
not everybody has that luxury. And sometimes you take the best of what you have, like in the case of, like I mentioned, after graduating, I did not really want to go to like Wisconsin Madison.
mm,
i
mm,
had I had no options, so I took that ultimately. So
correct.
uh,
Mm.
choice is also a function of, like, yeah, choice is a luxury, and
Yes.
not everyone has that.
Yes.
I was blessed, and in some situations I was blessed, others I was not. As much as I would like to say that the Wisconsin situation was bad, I know
Mm,
it was much worse for a lot of people who had to actually go back to India during that time,
correct.
Mm.
because they could not. They basically had invested like thousands of dollars in a master's education, and then they could not get the returns on those investments effectively. And now they had this
Absolutely.
loan in dollars that they had to pay by earning money in India in rupees, which is
Mm.
like
Which is
really hard.
Absolutely.
definitely toxic. Yep, absolutely. And also, especially in your career, I see that you were at a point where you were vice president at JP Morgan, but again, you switched to Google as an engineer, software engineer. How was that crucial decision that you took to, uh,
Oh, that's a great question. I was actually, like I said, at JP Morgan, where I was VP. I was basically I'd solved this problem that I described before, and it just became a scaling problem, and then it became more of a political problem where I had to talk to managers and get them convinced that this is a situation, this is an amazing solution, you should buy in, and then it became pitching to people, it became
mm,
managing other people, and I felt I was getting further and further away from actually solving problems. So effectively, I spent 5 years at JP Morgan. I
mm,
spent 2 years actually writing code to solve the problem,
mm,
during
Mm.
which I was not promoted at all because nobody knew what I was doing, and I was just this one startup inside JP Morgan.
Mm.
And after I had done all the coding, suddenly I got all my promotions, and the systems actually started working and actually having generating
recognition.
impact. So
Mm,
all my
Mm.
promotions were basically when I was not writing any code at JP Morgan, pretty much.
got it.
The work I had already done, it was after the fact that the recognition came for that work. So I became VP more like for the work that I did during those first 2 years effectively.
mm,
at JP Morgan. And also by the end of it, I was like, I want to get back to writing code. And I was
Mm.
so frustrated. And I basically went on vacation. I got high and listened to some podcasts. And I was like, I want to do a PhD at this point. I want to solve problems. I don't want to do all this. I don't want to deal with politics. I don't want to manage people. Managing people is a pain. Let me
mm,
just
Mm.
get back to solving problems. That's what I enjoy doing, really.
mm.
Got really high and I was like, let me learn about what's out there. And I heard this podcast about Elon Musk going sending robots to Mars and stuff. There's this very
Oh.
famous guy, Wait But Why, Tim
Mm,
Mm.
Urban. He's got a
Mm.
fantastic blog. I enjoyed listening to it, reading to it quite a bit. And
mm,
he was talking about Elon Musk and Mars and robotics. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do a PhD in robotics.
oh,
And
wow.
literally after that session of smoking, I went back. Did give my GREs all over again. Applied to CMU for a PhD in robotics. I got an admit, and here I am, VP at JP Morgan, suddenly with an admit at CMU, and I'm getting cold feet. And I'm worrying, oh my God, do I really have the courage to leave this high paying salary and go back to being a graduate student?
Mm,
Wow.
And yeah, and I was like, I was having cold feet, and I was like, what do I do? My wife suggested, what do these kids after their PhD do? Like they do their PhD and then what do they do? So I
mm,
went online, took a look, and they're working at industries. Ultimately, most of them, very few got back into academia. Most of them are working in industry. And I was like, maybe I can directly apply for a job that has robots around it.
mm,
So I learned about a team at Google. That night I applied at 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, that same day I got a call from a recruiter at Google. Would you like
mm,
to interview? I was like, sure, I don't care. I'm going for a PhD in any case. If it comes through, great. I skipped the PhD and I directly started a job. And that's how I ended up at Google.
wow.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
And
having so what does it looks like? It looks like you have transitioned from engineering to management and from management to engineering, but your heart is always on the engineering side, trying to solve the problem instead of running around with the people. But I understand that the journey could be a little more up and down in terms of it's like a waves, it comes in and goes out. Do you think handling the problems with a computer is much easier versus dealing with people?
I think people are complex and rich, much
Mm,
more than simple programs.
mm,
Hmm.
So definitely, people are more complex, and it requires a more subtle mind to handle
Hmm.
people compared to me. I pretty much like I know what needs to be done, and I can provide feedback to people, but it can come across as too direct. Stuff
mm,
like that,
mm,
like you have to be smart about how you give feedback to people. You have to be smart about how you communicate things to people. You have to keep their
Hmm.
interest in mind. Also, if you're a manager, you want to give people freedom in how they solve their problems. But I
yes.
care
Hmm.
about solving those problems. So if I become a
Ab-
manager, I tend to tell people this is how you solve problems. And I don't want to
Mhm.
be a bad manager. That's bad
Yes.
for that person and it's bad for me because I don't have the luxury of solving the problem and that person is unhappy because he feels like he's micromanaged. So
Hmm.
Mm,
so it comes down to style. And my style is getting down into the weeds, like extracting the core, identifying the core of the problem and just fixing that.
mm,
And
You're you are
it
more like you are more like a James Bond who wanted to be in the field,
yeah.
running around the enemy lines rather than be like an office space. You don't want to be like that. I see that. Thank you. Now, with this experience, how much do you think is networking is important, whether it is for your career or it for your social skills? How much do you think the networking piece comes into the picture?
So for programmers, I would say don't care about your network. Really, it doesn't
Mm,
matter. If
Hmm.
you're doing, if you're interested in pure problem solving, your
Hmm.
network doesn't matter. And as much as you're, it people might think about you to solve problems, and that'll only come with time. You build a reputation as a problem solver, and
Hmm.
then when somebody has a problem, they will come to you. And
Hmm.
that reputation is very difficult to spread outside of your like
Zones.
being recognized as a known problem solver within a small is very difficult in a big social circle
mm,
because
Hmm.
you will you have people who will come across as vouched as problem solvers but you have no idea whether they actually solved hard problems or not.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody you've worked with, you've solved hard problems, you can
Mm-hmm.
recommend them and they can recommend you when there's a hard problem. So
Mm-hmm.
the social networks tend to be much smaller, but first you need to solve hard problems. And that makes it that the word of mouth approach is usually much harder.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
The more easier approach generally is being recruited into a hard problem. Honestly, like
Mm-hmm.
that is, there are plenty of problems out there. It's not like all problems if all problems are solved, they wouldn't need computer engineers. So there are problems out there. Clearly, what matters is, a, does the problem appeal to you, and
Mm-hmm.
if that problem appeals to you, you know which companies to look out for, and
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the other way around, right? If a company is solving a problem that you care about, maybe they are a good fit, and if they reach out to you, great. And or you can reach out to them, and there are
Yeah.
always people looking out for like talented
Mm-hmm.
engineers. So
Absolutely.
I would say, it's for an engineer, you're always in demand. I would not worry too much about trying to worry about not networking.
Mm-hmm.
The world needs more engineers. So
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And I just wanted to, for our audience who are also going to be part of this IT field, or be it working at Google or any other organizations which are doing really great in terms of solving greater engineering problems. Can you guide, if there is one thing that you wanted to share, or there are a few things that you did in your life that helped you to solve the interview settings, or how did you navigate your career to Google, and how easy or difficult it is? I know we talked about this earlier, but I just wanted to reiterate so that audience can also learn from this experience that you went through, and if there is any hack that they can easily understand it well and navigate in their own personal journey as well.
sure. So one hack, if you want to get into computer engineering, do lead code,
Okay.
do a lot of hacker rank, do all of those,
Hmm.
spend 100, 200 hours doing that. After
uh,
that, you'll be able to solve any problem. You'll be able to crack any interview, join any of these FANG manga companies that you
yes,
care about.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do that and you should be golden. If you care about your level, focus on your on the systems design interview. Don't try to get over leveled, because if you get over leveled, people think, oh, I got a higher level than I expected. That's not a
Mhm.
good thing. That's a bad thing, because when you end up in that job, your expectations are at the higher level.
Mm.
Don't push yourself. Have fun. Once you get into one of these top companies, expectations can get ridiculous. So focus on what you know and try to do your job well. You'll be fine. You can learn on the job totally.
Awesome.
And like otherwise, in general, other advice that I would say is ask questions. It is people feel a little intimidated when they come into these environments. I was intimidated when I walked into JP Morgan, when I was
Mm-hmm.
dealing with these quant traders who are talking about these the five Greeks and all these fancy equations and like Black-Scholes formulas, and it can get really intimidating. Ask dumb questions. Ask
Mm.
lots of dumb questions. You have no idea how much people appreciate when people ask those dumb questions, because people want to teach. It
Mm.
is in people's natural tendency. When I get asked questions, I love to teach somebody about, okay, you asked me a good question, I'm going to spend my time explaining everything to you. And people don't realize how often people don't ask these questions because they want to have this facade of being like super intelligent or super smart, that they know everything, that they never ask these questions, which puts you into a bad spot, because you will end up in a situation where you're expected to know something that you don't know.
Mm.
And yeah, it's bad for everyone all around. So
Yes.
asking the simple questions, asking the fundamental questions, even though you don't understand them, is totally acceptable. And
Awesome.
we need to normalize that as a society as well. But
I
yeah.
totally
Basically,
agree with that.
yeah. Basically, what you're saying is go ask the questions if you don't understand it. It is okay to ask questions. No one would judge or think that you are not so smart.
Yep.
Some people will naturally like to teach someone that if they don't understand certain aspects of an equation, they'll be able to come forward and be able to help.
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
I definitely agree that this should be normalized nowadays, especially with a lot of expectations are set before even you join the company. And when you join, if you're not able to navigate through asking questions just because you feel, if I ask a question, I look dumb, is something everyone ends up doing and really not solve actual problem and be stuck with wherever they are for a long period. And I think we should definitely talk more about normalizing this in all the areas of our life for sure. Absolutely agreed.
And
And
part of that is giving forward as well. Like when you ask, if you are capable of asking dumb questions, you should have the patience to answer what you might perceive as dumb questions, because
yes,
people might not have that context. And when I say dumb, I mean it in a bad way, because there are no dumb questions, there are
yes,
no bad
Absolutely.
questions. And I mean
Absolutely.
it like people feel that way, and I don't want people to feel like question. It's not just because you asked a question that didn't make sense doesn't mean that you are an idiot. It's
yeah,
just that you don't have
Mm,
experience or you don't have knowledge. And
correct.
that is a very different, just seeing it from that perspective is very important. And same when you're answering questions for others, taking the time so that you educate them, because when people on your team succeed, your team succeeds. You don't want to be
absolutely.
working on boring problems. The more folks on your team are working on cutting edge problems, the more cutting edge problems you get to work on. So
Mm.
Exactly. No, that's
educate
That's
your
what
beautiful.
that's what exactly called as experience. Whether
Yes,
people understand that or not,
correct.
yes. And
the
that's
ability
really
to.
powerful. That's really powerful. And I just was curious that apart from whatever you shared with our audience that they can do lead code, hacker rank, and other stuff, is there any training or coaching that you went through personally, or you strive to being on top of the latest skills that they should also, consider or focus on?
So I think over time, once you spend enough time doing engineering and like coding, you don't have to. You start thinking at one level of abstraction above coding, which is the
Mhm.
ideas fundamentally.
Mhm.
And getting yourself to that level is more important, because then it is when you start thinking about ideas, you don't care about the details of the code. It becomes an execution problem, an implementation detail.
Mhm.
The
Mm,
strategy is more important, and then being able to focus on the strategy allows you to work on the cool stuff. The ideas are at the strategy level, not at the implementation level.
mm.
Awesome.
So that's what
Awesome.
I would say.
Sounds
Focus
good.
on getting good enough to code at the point where if you have an idea, you can just translate it into code. You don't have to think too hard about it.
Mm.
Awesome. No, love it.
With that, I want to touch base on the idea that you worked sometime as a master's student and you worked in the diverse fields such as the algorithmic trading, then you got into the machine learning, then you worked in the management area, working through the hops and hoops. During these transitions, during this changing from one field to another field, it must be some kind of overwhelming. How did you keep up yourself by not getting overwhelmed, by staying focused on where you wanted to go? Because the route can be very distracting. How did you keep yourself focused?
I think the route can be very distracting when you're in the search of options. In
Mhm.
my cases, I always had an option lined up, so I did not have much of a trouble. Like I think fundamentally, all of my problems that I worked, all of the places that I worked on, I was in search of hard problems to solve. And I first interviewed wherever I went, understood what kind of problems they're solving, and if it
Mhm.
was something that excited me, I would indicate interest in the job. And I was also very lucky. Like I was at the right places at the right times, so that helped quite a bit. I don't think I can give advice to how to get at the right place at the right time to anybody else. So
Mm.
I wish I had advice for that for myself, but I don't.
I think the mere fact that the way you are presenting is you are no more looking for a job or you are no more looking for a place to work, but you are looking for a place to solve problems. The way you say itself says that you are no more looking for a job. You're looking to solve the problems either through engineering or through robotics or through machine learning.
Right. That's a good way of thinking about it. And I do think that way. I don't like to think of a job as somewhere I go and spend 8 hours of my day and this
Love it.
then just come back, because that is, I care about those 8 hours, and that 8 hours is my life. And I
Yes,
don't want
Mm,
that 8 hours to be miserable for me just doing punching away at numbers just to get something out of it.
oh
My
my
goal
God,
is
love it.
to directing the story of my life again. I want to have value that I generate out of meaning out of my life is in solving these problems. So for me, that is why these problems are so much fun.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things I've been practicing lately because, especially even in my career, my life, that anything that is not purpose driven according to me, for me, if I'm not able to add value to a particular organization, that's not where I want to be. I want to be where I can really add value, to let it be any individual who wants to become successful in their life or whatever it is. And that's how I'm thinking. I think that's how everyone should start thinking, because you're right. 8 hours is not for the job, it's more for your personal life. And you are putting all those 8 hours into something that has a lot of bigger purpose and meaning in life. And I really am grateful to hear from you that same exact what we usually talk about. I'm really happy and proud to hear that for sure, Vikas. And I was curious. You are working at Google. There could be your personal life where you would be doing something completely different. And what is your routine like? And is there anything fun you do just to keep it open?
Oh, so before I can talk about my life in two eras, like before kids and after kids.
Sounds good.
So before kids, I had way too much free time after my during my day, and like I used to do a bunch of. I've done woodworking, I've
Hmm.
done cello. I practice cello. I practice guitar. I used to play soccer. Those are my big three, big four. And now it's mostly kids wake up in the morning, get them ready for school, get ready
Mm,
for work, get out of uh, the day's over, pick them up, give them a nice shower, get them like dressed up, put them back into bed, and then you get about some time, do some weightlifting, then and then you're done for the day. That's pretty
mm,
much I would say the things I do outside of my kids would be weightlifting. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
wow.
and for our audience, I met Vikas while at Google playing ping pong regularly with me. So that's how I know him.
Yeah,
And we just spend a lot
that's
of
what is a break for me. When I go to work, I'm like, finally, I have my day for myself. I can do what I want. I can go play ping pong, get a massage, eat
yes,
food, like chat with friends. That's the week is my vacation pretty much.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
are you able to adapt to the remote organizational structure, or how is it like currently with you, your personal
Oh, that's
experience?
a great question. I am still figuring it out. Like,
Hmm.
I personally prefer like brainstorming ideas with people uh,
At work.
In
in face
person.
to face personally.
Mhm.
Uh, but I don't get to do that enough, so I'm not having a very good time on that front. But
Hmm.
on the other side, when I need to code, I can just like completely have like my blinders on and just like focus
Yes.
on the problem. More productive in execution, less
Hmm.
productive on ideation. So
Hmm.
innovation and stuff might take a hit, but execution is like levels better than it was before the pandemic.
Mhm.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay. Because I want to touch base on how do you keep yourself up with the zones? Say, for example, I see that you like to read a lot of nonfiction books. How does that help you? Does that help you in the first place? Reading books.
I read. I am a very voracious. I use audiobooks now, and I'm extremely voracious. I go through 5 books a month.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
Mostly nonfiction, but
Mhm.
it's because it's like when I listen to a audiobook, it's a movie playing in my head, and I enjoy that process. It's like when people are thinking about watching TV and stuff, I instead just put a audiobook in my put an audiobook, play it on, go for a nice walk. That is
Hmm.
as entertaining for me as most people find movies.
As
So
well.
yeah, so I think
Yeah.
it's more what makes you like. It
Yeah.
just happens to be that it makes me. I enjoy
We
it. I do it for fun. I don't do it for personal development, or I don't have
there is a,
any
yeah,
Agenda.
like.
there is a saying that we become what we consume. When people use the word consume, everyone thinks, or most of them thinks, it is the food. But it's not only the food; it is what we consume through this, through other senses. Sometimes just to keep up, if I want to learn a new technology or if I want to learn about, let's say, investment, all I do is like for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I just keep listening to the topics on that particular area, so that within 3 weeks I'll have an good understanding. If not an expert, at least I'll have a good understanding of. That is how I use. We
That's
become what we consume.
Yeah, that's a great way to learn new things as well with all these YouTube tutorials. And I think the internet has changed the way we learn. And
Yes.
I
Mm.
love it. I would rather learn things this way than the way we had before, where things are more by rote. And I don't like that world. I like this new world much better. So,
Mm.
Awesome. And
But
I,
with sorry, brother,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
With that, I see that you are able to listen to 5 audiobooks a month, and you are able to pick up more things. But how would you apply them? Because knowledge is potential power, but it's not really helpful unless we apply them. How do you take that content and how do you translate that content into an application?
I don't try to. I
Okay.
am doing it because I enjoy it more than anything else. My listening to books is because I love it. It's not because I want to do something with it, or if it became like that, it would become a chore, and I wouldn't
Mhm.
want to do it. And I don't. I like listening to books. I want to keep it that way. I want to keep it fun for myself. My goal
Mhm.
is not to make more money or to like do something with that. It is just
Doing
something I
something.
enjoy, and I want to keep it that way, pure and nice.
Got it. Yeah, it's for you. It's more like the love, as in like you listen to books for a feeling which elevates you in your own personal experience, and you feel happy listening to books instead of putting a dollar value against each book. Is what I think is perfect. And I know we are running very short of time, and we had like quick, rapid questions, just one each, and
Sure.
then possibly. And I just wanted to know if there is one thing that you today want to tell our audience who are seeking an amazing career in their own journey. What would that one thing you would suggest, according to you, should they be focusing?
So there's one thing I would say is do what makes you happy. Do more of that. It's difficult to find money in some cases. I feel really blessed. Like
Mm,
I found a career where I can solve problems and make money out of it. Not
mm,
everybody can,
mm.
and I recognize that. But if you can figure out a way to do it, because that way your life is more fun.
But
So
yeah,
instead of you spending time trying to make your weekends do the things that you care about, you will end up spending your week doing the things that you care about.
wow,
Mhm.
love
Wow.
it, and purpose-driven life again.
Purpose. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. If you have to define success, how do you define success, or what does success means?
Do you want to talk about it more generally or just my own
Your
definitions of
own
success?
perspective.
Your own definition, not in general, just your own definition. If you have to define success, how do you define success as?
I honestly don't have a definition for success.
Mm,
Hmm.
Um, Life is meaningless.
correct.
Life has no meaning. Like what meaning it has is what you want to assign to it. And
Mm,
Absolutely. Hmm.
um, I I would say success is how well you're doing in your pursuit of happiness. And
mm,
that is for
Absolutely.
everyone to answer themselves. For
Exactly.
love it. Love it.
Love it.
Awesome. And with that, Vikas, I know I said we are close on time. We don't want to take more of your precious time. We would eventually, if we had something interesting in near future, we would want you to come again on our podcast, share more insights of what you're doing, and help our audience. And if our audience really wants to connect to you, is there a platform that you feel that you are more active on where they could reach out to you?
I'm not very active anywhere. I'm not very active on social media. I'm not very active on LinkedIn. I'm not very active on Facebook, Insta. I'm active nowhere. If you want to reach out to me, reach out to Bharat and he'll get me in touch with me.
That sounds even better.
That sounds good.
I'll definitely be able to connect you to Vikas, and without hesitation, I'll do that because I have personally felt a lot of gratitude throughout the time I spent with Vikas. Even though we were just playing, we were hanging out at Google. I know his personality has been amazing throughout the journey when I was at Google, and I would want everyone to feel whenever they feel the need of connecting with Vikas with whatever he had learned or want to experience the same, I'll be happy to help and connect them directly to you. So thank you so much again. It was really wonderful, and we are extremely grateful for this opportunity, Vikas. I would be very happy to host you again if in near future.
I'd be happy to be on again.
Yeah,
And
thank
thank you
you.
guys for having me. This was
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Thank you so much for taking time. I know it's like taking time on a weekday is a lot of value. Thank you.
Yep,
But
really appreciate it. Thank you.
cool. All right.